Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community. Hey, good people. Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez, with our special guest, Stacy Reed. How are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
I am good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I'm excited. I've been following you for quite some time, and you're going to be one of the speakers at the Marketing for the Culture Summit this year. So yeah, shout out to you. And we're going to get into your session a little bit later. But for now, the people that don't know you, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I am excited to be here. I'm excited for the conference as well. So my name is Stacy, and I am a marketing consultant. I am a Facebook ads expert, and I've generated over $150 million leading paid social efforts for some of your favorite brands like Zappos, Nike, Adidas, Crocs. Spent a lot of time in marketing. I've been in marketing for about 11 years, so I've definitely seen the landscape and the ecosystem change over time, but I've had my hands in so many different kinds of marketing. When I started, I remember Facebook for Business was just becoming a thing. And so my internship out of college, my first internship while I was in college was just like, we need you to figure out Facebook and Twitter for business. And I'm just like, okay. And so from there, I literally, when I was jumping around in corporate, working at different organizations from large and small, always been a side hustler though. So I've always had like a side marketing business where I was just like, I can help you with your marketing. And, even so much as starting out for free, just helping anybody like we all do when we just getting started, helping people out for free. And then eventually got to a point where I started to really take my business seriously, really leaned into being a fractional chief marketing officer for growing brands that really have a CEO that loves what they do, built the business, but they're not a marketer. And so they need someone to come in to sit in that seat of being the executive marketing person there. And then I also teach about Facebook ads because that's something that I learned and know so well and really, have the skill set. And I really try to figure out like, how do I take this and put it into a way that people can consume this and use this because it's such great information and it's such a great channel to be able to build your business. So I put all of that into a course. And so that's what I do. I teach people how to market better. I teach them the strategies, the systems, and the support they need to have in place to really take their business from that 6-figure mark all the way over to $1 million and beyond.
So when you started, because you mentioned the evolution of Facebook, social media as a whole. So when you started playing with ads, were you in corporate or you were on the brand side or agency side?
So I was on the brand side. So
Okay.
When I first started dabbling in Facebook ads, I actually was working for one of the largest transportation provider in Nevada. And so they were doing like limos, taxi, shuttles. So we had dabbled in some ads because we had an app that we had launched to try to compete with Uber and Lyft. And so that was kind of my first experience with using Facebook and Instagram ads as a way to, get more people to see what you're doing. And then from there, I had really kind of took a step back and said, like, well, what do I want next? Like, what's now? I always get these kind of periods in my life, in my career, when I'm like, what do I want my life to look like? And I said, I want to work for a big brand. And so I decided to really just go hard on trying to work for a big brand. I wanted to work in tech also. And so then I started working at Zappos and I got the job there and was just like immersed in the world of paid social. So running ads on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube, all the different channels, and really spending a significant amount of money. So we actually had reps that were working with us every week that were teaching us how to run ads more effectively and how to do what we do better because they want us to spend more money. But I had the privilege of being able to sit in that seat and work with all of these very large brands, doing large scale campaigns for Crocs and, for Adidas and all these different kind of brands, but under the umbrella of Zappos because Zappos sells hundreds of brands. And so we honestly were operating in-house as the brand and, leading that efforts. But then we also had a piece of it that was an agency side because these brands like Crocs, Adidas, Nike, all these brands would pay us co-op dollars to run ads on their behalf to their products on our site. And so we did have a little bit of both, but all of my experience has been mainly focused in-house and working with agencies here and there, but really building ads myself, building I remember at one point I was building 75 ads per month by myself. And so it was a lot, it was a lot, but it really gave me a great experience of how do ads work on a very large scale, but then also how do they work when you have these different brands and competing objectives and competing goals and that kind of thing? How do you also then bring other campaigns to life while still keeping the main brand Zappos, front and center?
Interesting. So I want to explore something a bit, because I know with a small business owner, one of many of our concerns is cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. So if we don't understand our cash flow, we might be a little nervous when it comes to ad spend. So take me into two things. One, when you start, even though you were working for a company, you started exploring with ads. Like you had that leeway. Were you nervous? Like, how much rope did they give you?
That's a great question.
And then fast forward a little bit to Zappos, like, what was that like? Because now you have, I'm going to say, an entity, a corporation. We're just, creme de la creme. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you have all the money in the world to play with? So what are those two dynamics?
It's such a great question. So I would say when I first started, the dynamic was more so, it wasn't a whole lot of pressure because it was very much like, let's try this, because we very much were in a position where we had to compete with Uber and Lyft. And the company decided to partner with an app called Curb that is like Uber and Lyft, but for taxis, that connects you with licensed taxis. And so really that was more in a position of, you are the designated millennial, meaning I'm the youngest, I'm the only Black woman in the office. And so you need to figure out why people are taking Uber and Lyft versus taxis. I'm like, I can tell you off the top of my head, I don't need to do any research, but if you want me to do that, we can do that. And so really that more so was coming from a lens of, let's try a bunch of different stuff to compete and see what sticks. But then when I came to Zappos, though, that was like, it was very much like we were spending a whole lot of money, but we also had very strict KPIs, like very strict goals. It was a lot of pressure. It was intense because it's like, I remember, when I first, like my first Black Friday, because my first Black Friday actually working at Zappos and just seeing the amount of money that was made in one day from one company, when you have all hands on deck, whether it's like all the different other ad platforms, but also paid social, you're spending a lot of money. It blew my mind, right? There is this immense amount of pressure because it's like, even though it's not physically my money, you still kind of feel like you have to perform, and you still feel, and being one of very few Black women on the team, there also comes with another layer of pressure. Also coming from where I come from, like I'm from Baltimore. I've never, worked in a tech company before. I've never, seen this much money flowing back and forth between a brand before. I've never been in charge of that much money before and deciding where it goes and how we're going to spend it and having the goal of making 3, 4, 5 times our money. Like that was very much, it was a lot. It felt like it was a lot of pressure, but also I also thrive in pressure. I very much am like someone who's like, if you put me in an intense situation, I'll be able to kind of navigate. And so I think that it really helped me to become a lot. What? Honestly, one of the main things I learned was how much data was involved in marketing. Yeah. Like that's probably what it was. It was more so like everything you were doing had to be justified based on some analytics or some numbers. It wasn't just like with at Freest, it was more so like the transportation company. It was like, let's try to spend some money. Let's figure this out. Let's see what's going on. If it doesn't work, that's fine. This other side of the house, it was more so that like the Zappos side of the house was more so like, we have to spend this money. We have to make these goals. We have to make 4 or 5 times our money. That is your job every day, to make 3 or 4 times the money for the company, or for these brands, or to bring these campaigns to life, and into all the other things that go into it. It was a lot more pressure, and it was a lot more really kind of tracking back to like, okay, what did we learn from this? How do we track this data, and how do we make sure that what we're spending we can actually justify with data? And so it was a little bit of a different kind of mindset, I guess, going into it.
That's good. That's good. That's insightful, because I've always been curious, because I've always worked for smaller companies, and it's like, do we really, it's always the conversation about and never getting to the action about ad spend. So I've always been curious about that. Okay. So I also feel like, can you maybe explain some of the differences when it comes to a service-based company running ads versus e-commerce or a product that someone is, selling to the public?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mostly who I work with in my course are service providers. And so there is a big difference, I would say, between e-commerce and service provider when you're thinking about ads. On the e-commerce side, that is more so like your sales. I would say the biggest difference really is your sales cycle. Your sales cycle on the e-commerce side is going to be a lot shorter, right? Like it's either somebody wants the product or they don't, right? When you think about service providers, typically you have to build a lot more trust there. And so your sales cycle is a lot longer. And so people may need to download a freebie in order to kind of get to know you a little bit. And then they may need to sit on your email list. They may need to see your lives. They then may need to go to a workshop to kind of, really get more information. They need to be warmed up more. And then the way that you're approaching them is a little differently. When you're thinking about an e-commerce e-commerce customer journey, it's typically more so like, someone goes to your site, they check out your product. Do they want it or they not want it? Do you incentivize a purchase with a coupon code? Something like that, so really kind of get them into your world to get them to make that first purchase. And then your remarketing kicks in later. And when you're like, you want them to go from being a first time purchaser to a repeat customer. When you're thinking about the service provider side, it definitely is more so about lead generation and getting people onto your email list and getting people into your marketing ecosystem so that they can start to understand who you are. They can understand how you can help them. They can understand the problem that they have even more, right? Because if I have a problem where I'm like, I need a pair of shoes, that really, there isn't a whole lot that goes into that decision. It's either do I like these shoes or do I not like these shoes, right? If I have a problem where I need someone to teach me about, finances, for example. Like I have people who take my course who are like, teaching people about finance and how to improve their business finances, how to work with bookkeepers, how to get on LinkedIn and sell and those kinds of things. Those kinds of things really typically you need to be warmed up more because maybe you're in a place where you're like, I'm very curious about, my finances, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger yet. Right. Or I'm also evaluating other people, right? Like, if I'm buying Crocs and I'm a Crocs buyer, I'm typically going to go ahead and buy Crocs. They don't need to really sell me too much. But if I'm a service provider and there's like 3 other sales coaches out there that are teaching the same thing you teach, really, it comes down to, do these people like you? Do they know you? Do they like you? Do they trust you? And so either way, in both sides, you have to build that know, like, and trust. But the way that you approach them is a little different because each person because that sales cycle just looks different. And so that's why it's really important to understand what your sales cycle is and understand what that customer journey is. Like, what touch points do you need to have with your clients before they actually convert, before they convert into a client? And when you know that, that's where your funnel comes into place. That's how you set your ad funnel up, is making sure that you say like, oh, this blog post really gets a lot of leads on my list. Run ads to the blog post, right? And get those people to get on your list and then get into your email, and then you convert them that way. Or if you're saying like you have a podcast, for example, you want to get more eyeballs on it because your podcast actually converts. Run some ads to your podcast, so figure out like what your sales cycle looks like and what touch points you need to have. And that will help you to inform what your ad strategy should be or what your marketing strategy should be in general. But if you're thinking about ads, that's going to help you to inform what that sales cycle, what that journey looks like when you understand what your sales cycle is.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of good things, sales cycle, which is extremely important regardless. Having your funnel. I know there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to ads. So what are some key things, maybe 3 to 5 things people need to have before they can decide to run a ad campaign?
Yeah. This is a great question. A question that I definitely get asked all the time because it's very, very, a lot of people are curious about it. So what I tell people is that you need to have 3 things in place before you think about running ads. The first thing is you need to really have messaging that resonates with your ideal client. And so that means that you actually have to have clients. And so, from my stance, you actually have to have clients that you can understand, like, what is the messaging that brought them in? What was the problem that they were experiencing before they came to me? What was the solution that they were looking for? What is their lifestyle? What are their demographics? Who are my people? Like, when you fully understand who your people are, that sets you up to really be able to create ads that resonate with people. Because a lot of times, a lot of ads are missing messaging and they kind of skip this step because they're just like, oh, buy this thing because it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's like, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure that you're an expert, but I'm thinking about me. I'm not thinking about you and your solutions and your offers. I'm thinking about the problems that I'm having. And so when you want to talk to me in an ad and you want to connect with me, it's very important to understand what that messaging is so that you can say, you know what, this is the messaging that brings in my ideal clients. This is the messaging that I'm going to put into your ads. The next thing you want to have is to make sure that what we were just kind of talking about is a customer journey that actually converts. So do you have a way of moving people from, I like to say, from moving people from, I have no idea who you are, to please take my money? All customers have to go through a journey, right? People have to get to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you before they're going to give you any money. And so if you understand what that journey typically looks like for your best customers, then you can set your funnel up like that. So like if you know that there's a lead magnet that brings in a lot of people, that brings in a lot of traffic, and then they go to a webinar and they watch a webinar and then they go buy your course, that's one thing that's a great thing to have mapped out, because then you can start to measure and you can start to optimize your funnel to make sure that you are getting more people to convert rather than having to spend more money on ads. Because you're like, okay, well, if let's say like if your conversion rate for your webinar to your course is 40%, what can you do to get that conversion rate up to 50%? What can you do to get that up to 60%? Because then you don't need to spend more money in the front. You just need to move more people through that sales cycle. So it's important to have that mapped out, because all of that stuff works together. Your messaging and your funnel work together to make sure that people can actually convert. And then the last thing I definitely say to have in place is you want to make sure that your organic marketing is on point. Because the thing about it is, like, everybody is not going to convert from your funnel the first time. Everybody is not going to see your ad and be ready to convert. And I'll use myself as an example. And I had someone who I just did a beta launch of my course. And she was on my email list. She was this like one of the first 2 sales I ever made for my email list, which I was like, oh my gosh, somebody finally bought from my email list, because I've been emailing them for months. But so she was like, when we were just having a chat, she just was like, yeah, like what you're saying is like so on point, because she was like, I got on your email list. I've been sitting on your email list for months. I just wasn't ready yet. And now that you have this course, and now, I saw all the promotions you were doing, now I'm ready. And so she sat on my email list for 3 or 4 months before she bought anything from me. And so understand that if you're not posting your organic content on social to try to attract your audience, you're not sending out your emails, you're not creating your podcast content or your blogs or your YouTube videos, whatever it is that you're creating. If you're not actually organically marketing, you can't build a community, and you can't stay in front of those people who have gone through your funnel who are just not ready yet, right? Like, because we do this all the time, right? Like, we may have a problem, but that doesn't mean we're ready to act on that problem right away, right? Like, I may download your freebie, and like, for example, I'm having a summit in the fall, and I started downloading some lead magnets about summits, and now I'm just on people's email list until I'm ready to buy stuff from them, because I'm not ready to plan out my summit yet. I just was like, I'm thinking about it and want to do it. I'm still in my research phase, but when I get closer, then yeah, I'll be ready to maybe buy your templates or buy this or do, sign up for these things. I'm just waiting until I'm ready, right? And so when you think about your customers, especially on the service provider side, right, like, those people, typically people who are sitting on your email list, if they haven't unsubscribed from you, they just may not be ready yet. So you have to make sure that you're still staying top of mind, you're emailing your list, you're doing all the organic marketing that you have been doing, even when you're running ads. And so those 3 things that you need to have in place, to recap, are your messaging. Make sure you understand what messaging resonates with your ideal customers. Make sure you have a funnel that converts, or a customer journey that moves people from cold to sold. And make sure that you are doing your organic marketing to make sure that those people who are not ready, that you're staying top of mind for them until they are ready.
Nuggets. If y'all don't come to this summit, I know this session's going to be fire. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, that's good. That's a lot. One thing, so I guess we got to keep our Facebook business pages up to date. You said organic social.
Honestly, I post stuff on my Facebook page that I post on Instagram and that I post on LinkedIn too, right? Like, so I say, because you have to have a personal Facebook, a professional Facebook page to run ads. Yeah. So even if you have I have the pro account, the pro personal account, like the creator accounts essentially. And I'm thinking that they might be able to you might run ads from that soon, because I'm starting to see some kind of like messages about like boosting posts. And so maybe they may roll it out to be able to run from your personal page. But for the most part, definitely want to keep your professional page up to date, even if it's just you're posting the content that you're, reposting on other channels there, because people will do that. Like, they'll see your ads, they'll go to your page and they'll see, like, is this a real person? Right? Think about how you shop. Think about how, like I said, you have to build that know, like, and trust. And so I have to trust that you're a real person. So I'm going to go check out your Instagram page. I'm going to go check out your stuff. And then, then I'll be on your email list and that kind of thing. So definitely keep that kind of stuff up to date, because if people see that your page is dormant, then they're going to be like, this page hasn't posted in a while, right? You don't want people to have to say that, to be like, oh, well, it's just because you've been busy and you haven't posted in a while, or you've been on vacation, you've been on the beach and you haven't posted anything, that, they're somehow untrustworthy, right? You don't want people to say that. So definitely continue to post on your pages.
That's very true. And I know obviously we're focusing on ads, but there's something to say when it comes to brand consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're just posting once a week at this point, but that consistency is there, which is only going to enhance when you're running an ad campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I have so many questions. I want to kind of detour a little bit because Meta has been, I guess, the primary platform when it comes to ad success for them as a company, as well as the user side. So I'm kind of curious, why do you think other platforms are not as effective compared to Meta?
Oh, that is a great question, because honestly, I compare all these other ad platforms to Meta's platform. I can go on a TikTok rant. Me and TikTok, we have a love-hate relationship. But honestly, I think it's because, so if you think about how some of these other platforms kind of operate, I think that the reason that Facebook is so successful when it comes to ads is because it collects so much data about you in order to show you stuff that keeps you on the platform. So if you think about like TikTok, for example, TikTok is built for discovering new content. It's built for, just finding new people. It's not really built for building a community or having someone to have this big recognition of a person. Instagram and Facebook is probably the complete opposite of that. Instagram and Facebook is more so like, I want to show you content of people that you know, that you like, that you interact with, to keep you on the platform, to keep you coming back, because it wants to build its sense of community. And I think because of that, because of how the algorithm really collects so much data about you and it helps to build profiles about you, I think that when you think about advertising, if you're thinking about it in a way that's ethical, right? Like if you're thinking about it a way of really actually using it as a way to connect with your people, right? And to get them to get your amazing content, your amazing information in front of them. It's super helpful to have all that information. And even though there is, with iOS 14, there is a block between, how much, what data Facebook can tie to individual users, that data still exists. And so I think that that's why it's been so successful is one, they have a lot of money, so they can build these ad platforms and they can, invest in that kind of thing. But I do really think that there is something to be said about creating a platform that is designed to show you stuff that you already like, to keep you coming back. And with advertising, they want to, at Meta's ad platform, they want you to be successful because they want you to spend more money, right? Like that's the thing. They want you to be successful. They want you to spend more money. And so they're actively trying to make it so that you can get in front of the right people and that you can get your offers in front of the right people and stuff like that. There's only so much they could do, right? Because if you're just blasting out messaging to anybody and talking to everybody, you end up talking to nobody. So on the advertiser side, we have to do the due diligence of creating ads that resonate with people. But I think that the reason that they're really just so successful is because of how much data they have about people, and because they really try to actively show you things that you like. And when you see things that you like, if you see things that resonate with you, then you're going to, then you interact with them, and then the advertisers make more money, right? But whereas TikTok is like, they just want to show you new, but there's something to be said about their platform too, right? TikTok's algorithm is, that it's causing all these other channels to go into a tizzy, right? Of creating reels and creating shorts and creating Pinterest clips and all these things, right? So there is something to be said about that. But I do think that, when you're thinking about marketing more so at a high level, I think that putting messages that people want to see in front of them is the best way to go.
Oh, man, this is like out of my wheelhouse, but you just have my brain spinning because I'm thinking about Google, I'm thinking about LinkedIn, and even going back to Google with YouTube ads, even though I have YouTube Red. It's just interesting. And I know all of these platforms are making money, but Meta is just a dominant force in the space.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. So focusing on you, I know you have a podcast, you have a course. Tell us about your products and your service offerings.
Yeah. So I have a podcast that comes out weekly. It's called Roadmap to 1 Million. And it's all about giving, you the marketing strategies and the systems that you need to understand to really take your business to the next level. And so if you have a big vision and you're someone that's like, I'm going for 1 million, I want to get over that $1 million mark or want to go there and beyond, you definitely want to make sure that you connect on my podcast called Roadmap to 1 Million. It's available on all the podcast platforms. Other ways that I help clients is, so I do have a course. It's called Maximize with Ads. And it really teaches business owners who have built some momentum and they're like, I have something that works. I know that my business is, I know that my offers sell. I know that my courses, my digital products, all of these things, I know that they sell, but I need more eyeballs. I need more people to be able to see what I'm doing. That is who my course is for. It really teaches you volume. So if you have a one-to-many offer, meaning like a course, you have content that you put out, anything like that, where you're trying to get lots of people to see what you're doing and lots of people to check out what you're doing, that's definitely who the course is for. And then as far as the other services, I do work as a fractional chief marketing officer with growing brands that really need someone to come and sit in their chief marketing officer seat and really to like work with their teams to provide them the executive leadership, to give them the mentorship, to give them the best practices and all the things that they need to do to be able to better, to be able to take the business from where they're at around like 500, 750K to over that $1 million mark. And I create a lot of content on social. I'm always posting things. I'm always going live. I send emails. I do all that stuff. So you can check me out on all the platforms at stacyzeal.co. Or you can go to my site, that's stacyzeal.co.
I have an interesting question. Say you have a small business, I don't know, we'll say 3 million in revenue, right? Mm-hmm. How many people do you think should be on the marketing team? And how many people should be responsible for running ads?
I love this question. I love talking about teams. And so when I think about, let me give for context. So when I was at Zappos, we had a marketing team of like 30 people and we were that was an 8-figure company, 8-figure a year company. So it was like 30 of us. Yeah. On the paid social side, there was 2 of us. There was me and my boss. And so I think that if you think about what is working in your business, that helps you to decide how many people and what seats you need to fill. That's because true. When I was at Zappos, we had people like that were on, doing Google ads specifically. We had people who we had 6 people on our email marketing team because we sent out so many emails. And so if you think about that, if you shrink down to 1 million, 3 million, somewhere in there, what I like to tell people to think about is that you need to have a mix of executors and strategists on your marketing team. The executors are the people who are actually posting the content. They're posting on Instagram. They're posting the blogs. They're sending the emails out, all of that good stuff. And I think that you need to start with having executors if you're thinking about hiring your marketing team, because you need somebody who's actually going to be putting stuff out there so that you can get this data. Then you also need strategists on your team. You need at least 1 or 2 strategists on your team, depending on the size, that can really be the connection between the goals of the business and the outputs that the marketing team is putting out. Because what happens is, if I've been on marketing teams where it was just me, and I've been on marketing teams all the way up to 30. And what happens is if you have only executors on your team, everybody's just doing stuff and nobody is connecting what they're doing to the outcomes of the business. If you have someone who is just focused on high level strategy, all the shit's not getting done, right? And that person ends up having to be in, because the strategist should not be the person that's figuring out what the trending audio is. That's what the executor should be doing. They should be the expert on the mechanics of Instagram and goes well on that channel. Your strategist should be the person that really kind of just zooms out and take a look at both sides of the business and figure out how do we make sure that what we are posting on Instagram is actually tracking back to our new customer acquisition costs and rates and stuff like that. Somebody has to be connecting the business outcomes and the marketing outputs. I would say when you think about ads, I think that it is perfectly okay to either have a freelancer on your team that runs ads, that's somebody who can just, help you to get the ads out. But I think that there's also something to having someone lead the strategy, right? Somebody has to be able to look at the strategy. So when I was working at Zappos and it was the 2 of us, it was great because when I started, she was focused on strategy and I was focused on execution. So I was overseeing an agency and then realized that agency wasn't doing right. So we ended up bringing everything in house. And so I was the executor. I was making sure all the ads would go out. But then she was helping to make sure that what we were doing were tracking back to our customer acquisition costs were on point. Our return on ad spend was right. And so then I eventually stepped into the strategist role and had someone on my team to come in and replace me. So I definitely think that if you have someone on your team that's going to be responsible for ads, definitely the CEO. If you have a small team, because I understand wanting a small team, because I like to keep my team tight. And so, when you think about like, if you have someone on your team that can dedicate an hour or two a week to running ads, to be able to look at the ads, to make sure that they're, doing right, to be able to build things and stuff like that, then that's great. But then the CEO is going to be responsible for the strategy. And so that's why, like, when I create my course, my course is really designed, like, if you are the CEO and you're going to be the strategist, it teaches you strategy and it also teaches you technique. It teaches you how to build. So I have like someone who's in my course now where her assistant is taking the course, because her assistant is the one who is actually going to be building and doing all the things, but she's the one recording the ad. She's the face of the brand. And so they're working together to make sure that the ads are effective and then to make sure that what they're doing, has strategy behind it and connects to the goals of the business. However, she does have someone who's on her team that's going to be like actually building the ads and actually watching them for her. And so I think that is a great dynamic of having someone that's going to watch it and actually build and push that stuff out, but then make sure that you as the CEO, or you have someone on your team, maybe you have a marketing director or something like that, that's going to be responsible for making sure that what they're doing on the ad side is actually tracking back to the vision and the goals and the business and the KPIs of the business.
If I'm not mistaken, it states that we should spend 10% of our revenue on marketing, right? On our marketing budget.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way to determine how much of that should be allocated to ads?
Honestly, I don't necessarily know if I subscribe that 10% of your revenue should be spent on marketing. I think it really just depends on your business. Like, if, I think it depends on your business. But I would say that if you're thinking about if you're spending 10% of your revenue on marketing, what I like to say is that at least, like, I recommend people spend at least a minimum of $500 a month. If you can spend a minimum of $500 a month on your ads, I think that you're good to go. But if you have more than that to spend, then I would definitely say that you're going to start to get into those percentages range. And so it's like taking, 1 or 2% of that and testing it out to see like how are these ads working. And so that's when I teach my course, it's like I'm teaching you to do an initial test to say like, what are my baselines? Like, what is my, cost per lead averaging, right? Like, if it's averaging $2 and I want to be able to add 500 people to my email list, then maybe I need to budget about $1,000 so that way I can, hit those goals. And so I teach people more sort of backtrack that way. So it's like, what are the goals? Like, what is the outcome? Okay, now that you have what you want to happen, do a test, see where your baseline KPIs are, see what your numbers are coming in at, and do a test that's significant for you. So like if you're able to spend $10,000 a month on ads, spending a $500 test is not going to really give you any data. But I say like if you want to spend 50% of your budget on testing on that first initial test. So if you have $10,000 a month to spend and you spend $5,000 on a test, that should give you a lot of good data to be able to say like, what are our baseline KPIs? Like, what is our cost per lead? What is our, what's our return on ad spend? Like, what are our numbers? And so then you can backtrack and say like, what are the goals? And then you can backtrack into what your budget should be.
You're good.
Oh, thank you.
You're good. You're good. So what can people expect in your session?
Y'all can definitely expect to have a very energizing conversation about ads, because I can understand how it can be a little boring. But mostly what I love to talk about in my sessions is strategy and really figuring out how do we layer Facebook ads into what we're doing already? What are the different things that we need to have in place first? What are some principles for creating ads that actually do perform? Like, what are some things? How do you look at this and look at everything strategically? Because I honestly believe that when you're starting to look at ads in a more strategic sense, like a lot of people are looking at ads as like, oh, I got to spend money, and I got to get these leads. But it's like, no, like if you think about strategy wise, like if you're thinking about like adding an extra 1,000 leads to your business, like one of my clients, she just added 1,087 leads to her email list in a quarter, and she only spent a few $1,000s. And so that has a long-term effect of her business, right? Like being able to add thousands of people or hundreds of leads per week or thousands of leads per month, like that is something that's going to pay off in her business in the long run. And so if I like to talk about strategy, because if you think about it that way, you're not so much focused on the cost, you're more so focused on the result and the output. So it's like, if you know that, your course costs $5,000 and you just need one person to convert, right? Like, and you can backtrack into those numbers. And so that's what I like to talk about. I like to talk about the strategy of it and really figuring out, like, how do we look at Facebook ads as a long-term sustainable strategy to layer onto our business? And then how do we bring that to life in a way that attracts our ideal clients, our ideal customers, and really finds a way to cut through the noise and just only talk to our people, and doing it in a way that's really not that complicated. I promise you, it's not that complicated.
I love it. I love it. Listen, if y'all don't get y'all's tickets, bring your laptops, bring your pen, your pad, your tape recorders. I'm old school, but bring all of that because it's a lot and you're going to need it. And I mean, obviously, this podcast episode is only a fraction of Stacy's intellect. The session is only going to be a fraction of her knowledge, right? But you can tell that she's going to pour into you. You can already tell, like, it was nothing but nuggets, flamethrowers.
Thank you. I go all in. I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go all in. So
you done gave me like 25 clips in this interview. Thank you.
Love that. I love it.
No, but seriously, look, you do not want to miss this event. You do not want to miss this session. I'm so excited about what we have lined up for Marketing for the Culture Summit 2023 on June 1st, Thursday, June 1st. So I'm grateful. And look, if you can't make it, which I don't know why, but if you can't make it, even if you do make it, y'all make sure you listen to her podcast and buy her course. I don't know what else you need. I really don't. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I mean, I just say trust yourself. Like, there's a lot of noise out there that tell you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. But I think that if you're feeling like, ads are something that could really work for your business, just try it out. Like, test it out, see how it does. Trust yourself to be able to, do what's right for your business. Because that's part of it. That's part of it. Sometimes it's like we're holding ourselves back from this next level because we think we're not ready. We think that our business is, our business isn't big enough to be able to run ads, or it's not, not important enough to run ads. Just focus on serving your people, talking to your people, and I promise you, you'll have really good results.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Stuff like this, I just feel like we're providing the best in marketing education. This is incredible. Thank you to all the listeners for showing support to the Marketing for the Culture podcast. Of course, we're going to have all of Stacy's links in the show notes, so you can check that out, as well as details for the summit. And remember, I believe in you.
Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.